Now, as I mentioned, there are going to be 4 different speakers that come from different backgrounds, so we'll just get started right away. The first person that I would like to introduce is Nicole Can, and she's the manager of Interpretive Delivery, and I've had the pleasure of knowing her for almost 4 years now. So maybe I won't do any more of an introduction, I'll let her do that herself, and let's welcome Nicole Can.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. Let me move this up a little bit, maybe. All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit about how I got to be where I am as the manager of interpretive delivery here at the Vancouver Aquarium. But the first thing I think we sort of have to address is what on earth is interpretive delivery? This is something that I'm asked frequently when I go out to even buy a phone, like I was doing the other day, and they have you write down your job title, and I said I was the manager of interpretive delivery. The first question I'm usually asked is, what language do I speak? And my answer to this is always a little bit funny because I do happen to be fluent in French, but that's not a requisite of my job. The easiest way to understand what an interpreter Interpreters are the people who you find at many different historic, cultural, natural history, scientific institutions that you as just a person who comes into that building can talk to learn more about that resource, about that moment in history, about that animal, and hopefully these people will inspire you to, well, in my case, dedicate the rest of your life to it. That's what happened to me. So I actually started here at the Vancouver Aquarium officially as a volunteer in 2005, but my history with interpretation and with the aquarium itself actually started when I was 4 years old. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and when my parents brought me to visit my aunt here in Vancouver back when I was 4 years old, my aunt, not really knowing what to do with a 4-year-old who had never seen the ocean before, brought me to the aquarium as sort of my entry point into the world of marine life. And I was absolutely gone by that point. I fell in love with every single animal that you could find in the aquarium, every animal that you could find in the ocean, and for the rest of my life, I've never wanted to do anything else other than learn as much as I could about these animals, and because I happen to like talking a lot, tell other people about them. So when I was 19, I decided to uproot my life from Winnipeg and move out to the aquarium. Really, I was also moving out here for school, but ultimately I was moving to Vancouver because I wanted to be at the aquarium, and that's when I started as a volunteer. Now, I started as a volunteer in about 6 different departments, which is not exactly what you're supposed to do when you start volunteering at the aquarium, but I was always a keener, and the department I enjoyed spending time in the most was interpretive delivery. At that time, and this was 9 years ago, I didn't really know what an interpreter was. I was like many of the people that I meet today. All I knew was that I loved marine life and I loved sharing that passion with other people. And as it turns out, that's really what an interpreter does. So I started as a volunteer in the interpretive department, and over the next 9 years, I really worked my way through basically every level of job in the department until I became the manager about 3.5 years ago. I wasn't only learning to be an interpreter and a manager by studying at the Vancouver Aquarium and volunteering and eventually working here, though. I did do a lot of other work and a lot of other studies outside of my time at the aquarium. So I'm one of the people that Stephanie was talking about that has a background in a few different areas, both biology and psychology. And in situations like this, I always really appreciate the opportunity to share my sort of career path to get to the aquarium, because it isn't the traditional method of getting into marine biology. I started that way. I started with sort of the traditional, I want to go to the Amazon, I want to study animals in the river, the butterflies, I want to learn about dolphins, all of these things. I wanted to go to university to be a marine biologist. But what I didn't realize was that there's no one job of a marine biologist. Like Stephanie was saying, you can be a marine researcher, you can be a marine veterinarian, you can be a marine educator, you can even be a marine photographer. You can study marine biology and do a lot of different jobs. And in order to get a marine biology degree, the one thing I really hadn't figured out at that point in time was that I was going to have to pass calculus. This is why I appreciate sharing the story with people like yourselves, because I do not have a marine biology degree, and it is because I could not pass calculus. I took calculus, this is my solemn promise to you, I took calculus 6 times in university, and I failed it each and every time. I am still a marine biologist. Because while I continued to try again, I was, as you would expect, getting a lower and lower and lower GPA, which starts to affect your ability to stay in school. And so eventually I was talking to my academic advisor and I was like, this is where I want to be. I want to be in the marine biology field, but I cannot pass this course. I was acing every biology course that I took, all of the chemistry, some of the physics. But I couldn't pass calculus, and no matter how hard I tried, I was never going to understand it. I was never going to get that degree. So thankfully, through the guidance of my mentors here at the Aquarium and also my academic advisor at Simon Fraser University, I was sort of guided into the psychology field because it was becoming very apparent to me that I also didn't want to work in a laboratory and do that sort of marine biology. I wanted to share my passion for marine life with other people. So throughout my time continuing at the Aquarium and moving into the psychology field at Simon Fraser, that's exactly what I did. I also started trying to learn about how to be a better communicator so I could really light that fire in people to want to learn about and protect our marine environments. So in order to do that, I studied at a lot of different interpretive facilities. I went out and explored different ways of interpreting. I joined the Board of Interpretation Canada and the National Association of Interpretation in the United States. And eventually, I also got promoted to be the manager of interpretive delivery here at the Vancouver Aquarium without a marine biology degree. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't know a lot about marine biology. Every single day that I spend here, I learn something new about one of the 50,000 different animals that we have at the aquarium. I also learn about the people who are coming here. We have over 1 million visitors every year, and I have the sheer pleasure of being able to go out and meet those people and try to learn about them and how I can connect them to animals like the dolphins. Or maybe for some people it might be the snails, or maybe the sea cucumbers. Whatever it is that really sparks that interest in people, that's what we want to tap into, because ultimately we want to try and connect people to our marine life through fun, engaging, positive ways so that they can move on in their lives and figure out how they can connect themselves to the marine world. And that's really the job of an interpreter. So as you can see, we have a lot of fun doing it. It is a really, really great way of still being connected to the marine biology world, but not necessarily having to work in a laboratory, also not needing to get as smelly as some of the other people that you might meet throughout this presentation today. That's not to say that you smell, just that sometimes the job, it happens, right? So whenever people ask me what the best part of my job is, I always say it's that I get to have the experiences that almost every other marine marine biologist has, but I'm not limited in it. I get to work with the animals, I get to work out in the field, I get to work with the researchers, and I also get to work with all of the people who I hope will be the future marine biologists in our time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicole. That was fun. That was actually some stories that I didn't know about you, so that's awesome. So our next speaker is going to be Athena Tuesday, and she is someone that I've actually known for a really long time as well, and she is an aquarist here. A lot of people don't know what aquarist means. So she is an aquarium biologist, and she is responsible for taking care of many of the animals and the exhibits that are here at the Vancouver Aquarium. So let's give Athena a warm welcome.
Thank you, Steph. My disclaimer is that I'm really sick and I just came in for this today, so I might be a little raspy, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, let's give it a go. So my name is Athena, and there I am behind the scenes behind the piranha exhibit. So I'm the primary biologist that's responsible for the tropical freshwater collection. My department, tropical, is really diverse. There's tropical freshwater animals, tropical saltwater. We have frogs, amphibians, terrestrial mammals, insects. It's a pretty vast collection, and our curator, Lee Newman, does a really great job caring for and overseeing so many different species. So in the tropical freshwater department, I take care of the piranhas, the electric eels, 3 species of freshwater stingrays that are found in rivers and the Amazon. So pretty much how I describe to my family is everything that's really cute and really dangerous. So anything that could kill you, I like to take care of. My story is that I started the Vancouver Aquarium 7 years ago in spring of 2007. I moved out here from what people in Vancouver call unterrible, and I don't think it's that bad, although it's minus 36 with the wind chill right now, so I'm kind of glad to be here. And so I moved out in spring of 2007. I had been out here for a visit in 2006 and came to the aquarium, and again, kind of like Nicole's story, growing up in somewhere close to the prairies, I didn't realize that there was a public aquarium in Canada. So I came out here and I always described my experience as like a deer in headlights. I was like, wow, this place is really awesome, all these conservation efforts, everything that's going on. And so 6 months later, I got in my car, drove 4,700 kilometers in 3 days, and I was here signing up for volunteership. So I volunteered for several months, and after a while, there became an assistant biologist position available, and I applied for that. And I feel very fortunate that my curator, Lee, took a chance on me and hired me for that. Excuse me. I worked as an assistant biologist for 4 years, basically just committed to the aquarium. It was just Saturdays to start out with. In 2009, we opened a frog gallery, and it was like, Athena, can you work for a month? We'll give you full-time hours for 1 month. And whatever job I was doing, I would just quit and be like, yeah, sure, because I really want to be here. So you don't have to be that crazy. Some people need money to survive. So I was always looking for new work, and then back to my Saturdays. And eventually, after 4 years, one of my former colleagues became pregnant, and I was asked to cover her mat leave for a year, which I was very happy to do. And then I crossed my finger, and I was like, please, be a stay-at-home mom. You don't like fish that much. And I'm sure she does like fish, but she didn't come back, so I was very glad, and was offered a full-time permanent position 3 years ago. So I've been doing it for about 7.5 years, but 3 years permanently. So some of the crazy things that we do, being a biologist or an aquarist, there's a lot of cleaning. It's not the glamorous job that everyone thinks in their mind. This is the eel cylinder in Canacord, and we have to access it using a scissor lift, putting a ladder in, wearing rubber waders so you don't get electrocuted, actually, and getting in to siphon out eel poo and clean the acrylic with hot water and cloths. And yeah, so we actually have to get in. This is what we're busy doing from 8 to 10. We usually start at 8, some people at 7. We need a couple hours before we're open to the public. And we are busy running around cleaning things and getting in tanks. So that's me in the eel exhibit on the left. I also do a lot of free diving in my exhibits, especially some of the new stuff that just opened with our big expansion that opened in June. Lots of the tanks are only about 8 feet deep. So traditionally, we would be using a hookah line with our regulator on it for scuba diving. And then we'd have our oxygen, O2, external outside the tank, but it's a 3-person operation. So instead of taking up my coworker's time, I usually just free dive, which means I basically just hop in a tank, tell someone, obviously, like I'm going in here, and there's usually people in the gallery too, which is kind of fun for them. But go up to the surface and take a big breath of air, and then go down and scrub some rocks, clean the acrylic, do some aquascaping, which means rearranging the rocks to look perfectly imperfect. And head up for a breath. So this is me just in our Lake Malawi exhibit, and then my coworker Joelle took that shot, just coming up for a breath there. And there's a suction cup and a magic eraser, so we use lots of conventional cleaning supplies and lots of many unconventional things. Another large component of our job is our food preparation. So we do, sometimes I say that the fish have a better lunch than me, especially in the Amazon. They get, obviously, things that would fall off the trees, and in the Amazon, it's not necessarily totally marine-based. They do get some things like squid, but they do eat worms and insects, and their staple diet for the smaller fish is bloodworms. This is a food preparation here with grapes and oranges, melons, yams, zucchini, and banana, which are all some of their favorites for lots of the catfish and the fish like the tambaqui in our giant fishes exhibit. And then also this is me feeding our fly river turtle at the new Papua New Guinea exhibit. So she's been target trained to come over and get hand fed twice a day. So food preparation is a really large component of our job because it is really important for animal welfare to make sure that things are eating properly. And excuse me. Yeah, so basically, let me just see what else I have. I'm just going to wrap up by saying that the most enjoyable part of my job, the largest thing I've gained from all this experience after 7 years, is that basically you can do anything. You can invent anything. We have to do food prep. We administer medication. We work on lighting and plumbing and life support, and we do our own backwashes with gravity sand filters. And it's a really crazy job. It brings in a lot of different components. And I just feel thankful that after all these years to have all this experience, and yeah, it pretty much prepares you for anything that life could really throw at you. So, and I'm sorry about my voice, everyone. I'm kind of gonna tap out here just because my throat's really sore, but thank you.
Thank you, Athena. And being a biologist is definitely a very hands-on job, and you're definitely not spending a lot of time sitting. So if you like moving around, you like learning about new things, you like doing problem solving, aquarium biologist is definitely the position that you might be interested in. Now, if you are someone like myself and Nicole and some of the people like our next speaker, Dave Riddell, and you like talking to people and teaching people, he is the Education and Engagement Coordinator with Ocean Networks Canada. So let's enjoy his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody here. Thanks to the Vancouver Aquarium for inviting me to talk today. As Steph mentioned, I'm an educator at, at Ocean Networks Canada at the University of Victoria. And my career, I guess like Nicole's as well, has kind of taken a bit of a non-traditional path into marine science, like many marine scientists actually. And before I tell you about some of the adventures I've had and how I got to where I am today, I'm just going to ask you guys, how many people here already know what they want to do or who they want to be whenever they graduate? It's just a couple of hands. Yeah, it's not that unusual. Certainly, I've asked this question of grad students as well, and hands still go up, even at that point in their lives. So, yeah, if you're interested in marine biology, there are a number of different pathways, and certainly after our presentations today, I'm happy to entertain any questions you guys might have about what some of the options might be. But certainly for me, this is the path that I took. So this map up on top gives you an idea of some of the kind of major places where I've worked and studied over the years. I'm from Northern Ireland originally, that's why I talk funny. And I seem to like cold places. So maybe I'm going to go to the Bahamas next or something. But whenever I was in high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked biology. And I knew that I really cared about what happened to our environment. So early on, I kind of saw myself as going down an environmental science kind of path. But I liked water a lot. So I grew up around rivers and streams. And then on the weekends and in the summer, I would visit my grandparents on the North Shore and spend time on the beaches and the tide pools on the Atlantic. And I loved fish a lot, and I still love fish a lot. So that was kind of the connection for me at the beginning. I was like, I want to work with fish, I want to work with water. So after high school, I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Ulster. And as part of that degree, I was able to take a year as part of that program and do an internship, which for me took me to a field station in the Highlands of Scotland. I spent a year there. I started off doing a little bit of botany at the beginning, but then quickly switched to working with salmon and trout populations and looking at the impacts to those populations. And I was hooked, so to speak. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I love being outside. I love working with water. I love working with animals. And I loved asking questions and trying to find answers. So as soon as I graduated from my undergrad, I went straight into a master's, went back to Scotland, and this time did a master's in aquaculture. So not so much looking at the industry itself, but the impacts of the industry on freshwater systems and marine systems. And I did some work in that field for about 4 years afterwards. And then finally, I decided it was time to do a PhD. It took me a little bit of a while to make that decision, but I got to the point where I was really enjoying research, but I wanted to ask my own questions and do my own studies. And that's what brought me back to Canada. And I was looking at the impacts of metal mines and pulp mills on freshwater systems. And at the end of that, I did a postdoc in New Brunswick in the same field. And during that time in my postdoc, I started working quite closely with nonprofit organizations, so groups that were dedicated to raising awareness about the health of freshwater systems, freshwater ecosystems. And while I was working with these groups, I came to realize that one of the biggest challenges for scientists is trying to get their message out to non-scientists. And certainly for the watershed groups I was working with, it was a major challenge for them. And it got to the point where I took time out of my work and went back to school again and did an education degree. I wanted to learn more about how people learn, what the barriers were to learning, what the barriers were to translating knowledge into action. And after that degree, I went back and worked again with watershed groups, this time with a research team based out of the University of New Brunswick. And I was their education coordinator for about 5 years, 6 years. And that was an incredible time. I got to do all kinds of different jobs, play all kinds of different roles. Because when you're working with nonprofit groups, they don't have a lot of money, but they need to do a lot of things. And they don't usually have a lot of staff. So normally everybody wears about 6 or 7 different hats. So I worked as a scientist, I worked as an educator, I made some documentaries, I did some web development, all kinds of things. And these are just some of the things that I did during those few years. So working quite closely with schools a lot, so taking people out on field trips, developing resources for teachers to raise awareness about the health of water systems. Here we have a group down in the bottom corner here raising awareness of where storm sewers go to, like they go straight to the ocean. And you'll see a lot of these kind of signage around cities now. And some of the more adventurous programs we did were actually developing and building outdoor classrooms. So for schools that didn't have the resources to actually get out to a park or a forest or a stream, we would actually try and bring nature to them. So this used to be a football field, and we turned it into a wetland. And we built tree nurseries, native plant gardens, vegetable gardens, all kinds of things. And this other example here is at an elementary school where we developed a nature trail on land that was donated by the city of Fredericton. So all really exciting projects. I got to work with lots of different people. So it was a really exciting time. So after New Brunswick, I moved to BC and to Vancouver Island and to Banfield. How many people here have been to the Marine Science Centre in Banfield? Oh, a few hands. Okay. Yeah, many students pass through there every year. It's a wonderful place, wonderful people. So I started working there. Initially, I was running the research department and helped supporting the research that happens with the grad students and the scientists, the research scientists that visit Banfield every year. And up here in the top corner, that's me fishing for a shark. And after working in that role for a while, I started to morph back into more of an education role. So I was teaching middle school and high school with a public education department, and then designing and teaching university courses at Banfield as well. And also, for 1 year, I was also moonlighting as the science teacher at the Banfield Community School, which at the time was K to 6. So lots of teaching at Banfield, and very, very enjoyable. And that brings me to where I am right now. So recently, I moved to Victoria, which is a bit of a change from Banfield. And I'm now working with Ocean Networks Canada. So I'm one of a team, the education team, that's dedicated to promoting marine science and fostering ocean literacy with students, educators, and communities across BC and Canada. And we work to develop resources for schools, for universities, for different groups to help raise awareness of the science that's happening, marine science that's happening with our global ocean, and incorporating a lot of the data that originates from our cabled observatories. Now, some of you might have heard of these. Ocean Networks Canada is responsible for managing two major underwater observatories. There's one on the east coast of Vancouver Island, the Venus Observatory, which operates out of Saanich Inlet and the Strait of Georgia. And the other one, the large one here, is the Neptune Observatory. And it snakes all the way out from Port Alberni, out to the Pacific Plate. And this underwater cable supplies power and internet connectivity to various nodes along the cable. And at each of these nodes, we've got a series of different sensors. So we're measuring things like temperature, oxygen, chlorophyll, salinity. We've got bottom pressure recorders that will detect earthquakes and underwater landslides, so give you early detection of tsunamis. We've got hydrophones, so we're listening to the ocean. And we've got cameras at many of our sites as well, so we're able to stream in almost real time what's going on in the ocean. And all of this data is streamed back to the University of Victoria and then made freely available to anybody who wants it. So whether you're a student in class, whether you're at home on your laptop, or whether you're a researcher on the other side of the world, you can access this data for free. And recently, we've developed kind of smaller versions of these observatories. So we've got what we call our community observatories. We've got two operational at the moment. We've got one at Mill Bay on the island, so it's on Saanich Inlet with Brentwood College School. And the second one is up in Cambridge Bay in Nunavut in the Arctic. And again, these are much like our larger observatories in that they have sensors that are measuring different variables in the water. Both of these community observatories also have weather stations on shore as well, so they're measuring atmospheric data as well. And all this information allows these communities to monitor the health of the ocean right on their doorstep. And we're hoping to expand a lot of these smaller observatories in the coming years up the BC coast and develop a network of schools and communities sharing data and discoveries together. So that's my 25 years in a nutshell. I'm looking forward to answering any questions or having discussions that you guys might want to have afterwards. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's really neat to learn about how you have science background and how it has translated into working in education and with students and in the public as well. So our next speaker is going to be Dr. Justin Rosenberg, also has a reputation of being probably the tallest person here at the Vancouver Aquarium, and he is our veterinary fellow. So he actually works on a day-to-day basis with very, very different animals, all the way from something like a sea urchin, all the way up to a large marine mammal. So I will ask you to give him a round of applause.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. And as she said, I am Justin Rosenberg. I'm the veterinary fellow here at the Vancouver Aquarium. So I'll tell you a little bit about kind of who I am, how I got here, and what we do, and the beauty that veterinary medicine has to offer. So we'll start off. I grew up in New Jersey. I am from the States. I've done everything in the U.S. aside from this job 5 months ago. I moved up here, and I'm loving the experience so far. But we'll get to that in a bit. So I grew up in New Jersey. The ocean was literally my backyard. So everything I did, all my hobbies and things I did for fun involved the ocean and aquatic environments. But that having been said, never really truly considered a career in that field. I always knew from the get-go that I wanted to be a veterinarian. As cliche as it is, it was a calling that I just went to. So everything I did was working towards veterinary medicine. So when I started my undergraduate degree in Ohio, I was a biology major. Well, things change, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, but life had a way of changing that plan for me, so I switched over to mathematics. So I was laughing when Nicole said she took calculus 6 times because I've actually proven calculus. And it really is a bizarre path of getting a degree in mathematics and then going into veterinary school. So it's very heavy on the science coursework, but I took all those courses, still met all the criteria for the applications, applied, and was accepted to Iowa State University. Again, Iowa, smack dab in the middle of the US, not much water anywhere nearby. So it's still interesting that I ended up here. But got a great education in veterinary medicine, learning the foundation of cats, dogs, cows, horses, everything you can think of, nothing really about fish or marine mammals. So up there in the top left is a dog that we had the pleasure of spaying and getting back to a shelter to get a lovely home. But it really is wonderful of the things that we can do. So as a veterinarian, like I said, I'm the fellow here. It's a 1-year training position. My ultimate goal is to end up at a zoo or aquarium somewhere in the world. And this is a training position. So at the end of my year here, I get kicked out and have to try to find something else to do. But going through applications now for that. And ultimately, it's applying the foundation of medicine that I learned in Iowa to all these animals. I was doing small animal emergency work before coming up here, so it's, again, just the application. It's taking that background and applying it to everyone. And some of the other things that we get to do is work on all of the animals that we have in our collection. So as Stephanie said, we can look at little sea urchins all the way up to the marine mammals. And it's amazing because the staff that we work with here are extremely talented and gifted. We work with Athena, her department, which is tropical waters. We work with our BC Waters collection individuals and the marine mammals, and they are so in tune with their animals. Athena can tell me when a fish isn't looking right, not eating the same, and that really is when we get involved. We go out there. So our goal here at the aquarium and the veterinary health department is to provide the best possible care to all the animals, and we really do that from a preventative medicine standpoint. So we're trying to keep everyone healthy as opposed to getting them back to health, which is sometimes a lot easier said than done. And I never imagined I would be at an aquarium working on fish in a medical aspect, but it's really an individual animal in a population setting, which is really neat if you think about it, because we're working towards keeping everyone in our collection happy and healthy by using each animal to do so. So again, what we get to do here is everything. We have all of the bells and whistles that you would imagine at any other veterinary hospital. We use x-rays, as you can see on the left side there of a sea otter. We use ultrasound. We can do blood work. We even do blood work on fish. And we work closely with a lot of specialists in other fields when we need help with something. So if we have a very complicated case, for example, later today we're actually going to be taking one of our, where I've gone from a mathematics degree in undergraduate to graduating veterinary school, doing small animal medicine, and now at an aquarium. So yeah, I mean, I will gladly talk to all of you guys about any questions you have about veterinary medicine, and then anything that you guys have about how to get into the zoo and aquatic industry. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Justin. I had no idea that you had a mathematics undergraduate. I don't think I would have done very well in that either. So now for you lucky folks who are here in the theater, this is our opportunity to get to know some of the professionals or the professionals that are here today. You heard a little bit about how they got to where they are, what the jobs are that they are doing, but perhaps there was a question that you didn't get answered, or there's something that you want a little bit more information about. So this does now conclude our online segment, but for our experts, if we can just kind of spread out around the 4D theater, and then for the students and all the individuals who are in here, we can go up to whoever we want. We do have about 20 minutes to do so. So thank you very much for coming out. I hope that you enjoyed the Careers in Science event, and have a wonderful day at the Vancouver Aquarium.